Okay, thank you so much for this invitation. Actually, this is my first time that I'm in Asia. So, art diagnostics, cultural heritage science, and conservation science. So these are the same name, different names for the same things. So applying science in order to see information that are behind the eyes. So basically the questions that we have are how it was made, so this would be materials and methods, who made it, so that would be authentication, and how should it be preserved, and this is mean conservation. So the idea is we have the paintings, for example, and we can see much more information behind our eyes, for example, in this case, using infrared photography. So here we see Valet, that is the name of the producer, it's the stamp of the producer of the canvas, and this is visible just in the infrared photography. So thanks to this information, we can work into authentication. So we can retrieve the information on where this painting was made and when. Regarding myself, a little bit of introduction. So my name is Antonino, I'm a physicist, and for 16 years I've had this passion for scientific examination of art. So basically I was there in first at the university in Italy, and during these 16 years actually I've been working as generally you do in research as a PhD students, then a postdoc, working on different kind of technologies. So over there some pictures of me working with Raman spectroscopy for pigment identification, in 2007 neutron imaging, that was a project related to finding a lost painting from Leonardo in Florence, working with atomic force microscopy at the Tate Museum in London also for conservation issues, and then also working on new technologies like, for example, terahertz at the Metropolitan Museum in New York. So basically until 2011 I was at the Pratt Institute in New York teaching scientific art examinations, these methods. But then basically in my previous experience I noticed that there was a gap between academia, science and the technology world, so this company producing equipment, and the art professionals, so conservators, fine art photographers, conservation scientists working in museum, small, medium conservation studios, laboratories. Basically, I noticed that the research that I was doing myself while in university was not aimed at being used in the real art conservation field. And basically this gap has a number of reasons, but you can understand that if I am working for academia, I need to work on expensive tools, equipment, scientific equipment. While we know that in conservation, it's a relatively, I would say, it's not a rich sector like could be medicine industry. So expensive equipment is not always allowed. It doesn't make sense. So resources are limited. And so basically in 2012 I started this Cultural Heritage Science Open Source initiative to make the bridge So bringing the best from academia, the most interesting part from academia, from technologies, and make it available to the real art sector. So basically I started this initiative back there in Sicily. That's my studio in a historical building there in the town of Via Grande. And this is the master plan for this initiative. Just one mission: promote innovative means so looking at these new technologies, stuff that are produced each year, and the practical technologies. This term practical has a lot of meaning. We're gonna see it. So this is my mission: promote these innovative and practical technologies. So I can do that by developing this piece of equipment actually and disseminating them across institutions like yours. So developing means basically each year I try to develop a new tool that is aimed at small, medium museums, institutions, art conservators, studios. So in 2013 was technical photography, 2014 this panoramic infrared reflectography, 2015 multispectral imaging, 2016 a low-cost X-radiography system. So the idea is each year to work also on a new tool. So tools developed by art professionals. So the idea is that so far what we saw is that there is a big company, for example, doing multispectral imaging systems. Those systems are made for industry, and sometimes they want to sell one of these tools to an art conservation institution, for example. So the idea is that those tools are not engineered, developed specifically for our sector. So basically I have this 16 years experience working in the art field. So the idea is that we as CHSOS develop tools for our workflow and we search for the best solution. I do art examination as a service. So people, museums call me to do these art examinations, and so I know what is really needed in the field. So when I'm thinking of the best tool for art conservation, for art examination, I have some knowledge, experience to figure out what's the best solution. And then what we do is we develop this tool and we disseminate these tools to this international art professional community. So best solution, what means as a tool? No, we will see cameras, we will see infrared reflectography stuff, scanners. Best solution, practical, means should be a tool that is fast and easy to operate. What I'm saying is that I use this sentence: the broom is still around. So to clean your floor, you can use a vacuum cleaner. Now there are even robots and something. But the idea is that the more complicated is the technology, the more issue you have. So basically, in every home, eventually you have still a broom. Because, there is a power issue, cables and batteries to change. So basically, if I need to just clean this space, I just take the broom. So the idea is that when you have a tool that is fast and easy to operate, it's much better than one that is convoluted and you need a lot of features. Then the best solution, another term that I like, is low cost. Low cost, it's not just about how much I spend to buy the tool. but it means maintenance. If I buy an expensive equipment, then if something gets broken, it's gonna take a lot of money to change it. So my experience is that I saw plenty of basically equipment just stored somewhere because there was no money to replace broken parts. Or just even to make updates, for example. So like you have a computer with a newer operating system, for example. So the software there is not a new version, so it's over there. Then another sentence is maintenance and return on investment. So if you, basically the idea is that if I'm an institution and I invest money on buy a piece of a tool, I want to be sure that that tool is going to be used enough to justify all the money that I spent. I have a video here, let's see if it starts, because it's pretty interesting. No, it's not. Let me see. From here, media not. Maybe it's not. Well, it's okay. It's okay. No, doesn't. Okay, and then another thing is adaptable. Base solution must be adaptable. So basically, what I do is I compare a Ferrari, like a very good tool, with my solution that I would compare, like with a famous Italian 500, the Fiat old car. Basically, the idea is that a Ferrari looks nice, so it's attractive, but you cannot drive a Ferrari on a dirty road, on the country, for example. You know, Ferrari is nice, but just if you have a highway. So having tools that are more adaptable makes them more used. So, for example, it means that a tool that is compact, that is lightweight, it means that you are going to use it when you go on site, to go to do on scaffoldings, for example. You go up there, you are going to bring that. If you have a very expensive, sophisticated tool, eventually you are not going to use it on your workflow. Okay, so outcomes we described, basically this is the tools we have been developed from 2013, and it's what we are gonna cover in these 3 days. So technical photography, we just give here a brief introduction because we're gonna talk about it later on extensively. Basically, we are gonna see how to use a modified full spectrum camera, so basically a digital camera that can see from the ultraviolet until the near infrared, using the right set of filters and lamps in order to obtain all these set of images, of technical images, where each one of these image can give us a little bit more of information of the object we are studying. So, for example, here we have a painting. This is the visible one, this is the infrared, and basically with these tools, with a technical photography tool, we can see much better through the dirt. You see here, we see the cross over there that before was not visible. We can see through old varnish, so this was on the canvas. We can see retouches, so this arrow over here is more visible, that was covered over there. We can distinguish, for example, with this technical photography tool, different inks. So you see these tools over here, one of these become transparent in the infrared, so it's an ink that is another kind of ink. We can use this tool to better detect faded inks. So let's see this one. So this is the visible image, and this is the UVF, ultraviolet fluorescence image, where we have much more contrast, and so we can read that faded print. Then UV, of course, is used for analyzing and see retouches in a painting. We can see also retouches in the pigments. So we have this wall painting over here. We do infrared false color, and we see that the blue sky here turn red. So immediately we can tell where there are areas that are not original. Of course, then we have underdrawings. We are interested if there is any of this underdrawing. Could be for studying technical creation of the painting, or to study styles of the underdrawing. And so we're gonna use infrared or infrared transmitted, another technique. Then we have, for example, infrared fluorescence, this technique that is used to tell where there are some kind of modern pigments, like cadmium pigments over here. We're gonna see these imaging methods in details during the course. And this is an overview of basically why we use each of these techniques. So for example, today we're gonna see technical photography, and we have here the different techniques, so raking light, UVF, IRFC, UV reflected, and so on. And then here we see what they are used for. So raking light will be to study brush strokes technique, to document it, UVF to detect ink paints, retouches, and so on. So this basically will be our guide through this course. Then 2014 was about, I developed this panoramic infrared reflectography system. So the idea is that in order to see underdrawing, here we have the photo, we have the infrared. Infrared means photography done with a digital full spectrum modified camera, so that one over there. Infrared reflectography means using another detector that goes farther in the infrared. And we see that this detector is much better, we see much more of the underdrawing. But there is an issue that these new detectors are very small, so basically alternatives would be expensive scanner or just moving the camera all around, which would be time consuming. So the idea was to develop this method using a panoramic head. Okay, then 2015 was about multispectral imaging, and the idea is to make mapping. So there are two main applications. Mappings, that means I have a painting and I can distinguish the different kind of pigments applied on the painting, making a false color map. So like in this case, okay, and then the other application actually of MSI, multispectral imaging, would be to enhance the reading of faded paints and faded inks, like in old manuscripts or, for example, wall paintings. If we have like very few of the, for example, ochres on the paintings, we can use this technique to make them more visible. Let's say this, for example, reflectance spectroscopy, of course, is not something that I developed, but I'm putting this into this list because it's a technology that I am promoting, disseminating, because it's related very closely to the imaging technology. Reflectance spectroscopy basically means the light reflected from a surface, so it's related to photography, and also it's useful for this identification of pigments. It's very powerful and relatively low cost, at least compared to other techniques like XRF and Raman. Then we're going to introduce a reflectance transformation imaging, also another technique developed by other groups, but also very affordable, practical, and interesting. And then other things I'm doing is making available tools for art professionals that wanna practice and be knowledgeable about these techniques. So, for example, this Pigment Checker, that is this collection of well-documented pigments, historical and some new, used for in conservation, in order to, with this tool, to practice imaging and spectroscopy on the historical pigments, but on standard pigments, so we know what they are there. Okay, so basically these are people that are using now Pigment Checker. Then you know, in order this effort, this initiative to be, successful, I need a strong dissemination plan, you know, because basically is this a community of users that buying my training programs, buying the equipment, allows me each year to actually keep working and develop these low-cost systems for the community. So dissemination is done by publications. I publish much more now than I was in academia, and my publications are basically guides. So title like Macro Photography for Reflectance Transformation Imaging, a practical guide to the highlights method. Then a practical guide to panoramic and multispectral imaging. So the idea is making publication where actually I jot down, I explain better in a paper what I do also on a training program. So in a training program, just talk. If you read this paper, you're gonna see all the details of what I'm doing and so on. Okay, so publications. Then there is this website, the chsOpenSource.org, and the idea is the website is used to build this community of art professionals worldwide that keep following this project, and so open up opportunities. So now we are in the order of 200 people per day of visits on the website. And then I keep doing art examination as a service. So when could be, for example, private collectors, could be museums, could be conservation studios. They ask my service to do a full examination of a painting, manuscripts, and I do this service with I'm specialized on mobile equipment. So basically this luggage over here, all my equipment stay there. So the idea is also to have this worldwide service, and this allow also me to keep looking on what is really needed in the field. So it's not like I'm just in the lab, in some university, and I figure out, I do research on my own. Basically, this allows me to still have a grasp on what's needed in the field. Okay, and then I do this trainings program that have a very diverse audience, so conservators, fine art photographers, art historians, conservation scientists. They are interested for different reasons to these methodologies, and then this training are all hands-on activities. So basically we're gonna see not theory but the actual piece of equipment and how to do it, and actually it's very technical. So we're gonna see how to edit the image, how to check the calibration and everything. The goal is basically what I want is that after taking the course, the institution is ready to have its own practical workflow to start doing the examination. So basically what I'm saying is like train and go. So you see every piece, every step of the process. So yeah, this is a kind of international audience now. It's growing. Also, the number of these training institutions interested. So these are places where we have been. This will be the first time in Asia for me. Was interesting. And so this is the 3 days program. The hours are not correct. This will be the standard program that I give. So basically we start with technical photography, then infrared reflectography, RTI, reflectance spectroscopy, and then multispectral imaging. There will be some changes in just the hour, but the order will be the same. Okay, thank you. This is just a brief intro. Okay, so any question?